I was sitting in a glass conference room in downtown Chicago when my phone vibrated against the table. The sound was small, but it sliced through the droning of quarterly forecasts and polished voices. The others kept talking, numbers, growth, projections that suddenly meant nothing. The screen lit up with Sarah's name. 32 years old. My wife. The message was short. I'm taking the children to my parents. I'm filing for full custody. That was it. No explanation. No hesitation. Just the quiet violence of finality wrapped in a single sentence. For a moment, I watched the letters fade into the background light of my phone, as if they could still be unsent. Around me, the conversation carried on, but every word became a distant hum. I felt my pulse move behind my eyes. I typed a single word back. Okay. Outwardly calm. Inside, I was disintegrating. Lily is 8. Ethan's 6. Their laughter had always been the only sound in our house that felt honest. To imagine that sound fading into another home, another man's hallway, it was like watching sunlight go out of a room forever. For nearly a year, Sarah had been changing. It started with the harmless things. New clothes, new perfume, long showers followed by excuses that didn't fit the clock. Then came the nights she needed air, and the afternoons that smelled like wine before noon. She called it stress. I called it distance. There were weeks when she drifted through the house like a ghost wrapped in silk. Beautiful, unreachable. The children noticed before I did. Lily began clinging to me at bedtime. Ethan asked why Mom was always asleep. I had no answer that didn't taste like a lie. At first, I told myself it would pass. Marriages bend, they don't always break. Maybe I'd been too absorbed in work. Maybe the fault was mine. But guilt is a poor substitute for clarity. So, one night, when the children were asleep, I sat at the kitchen table with the hum of the refrigerator in my ears and made a decision I never thought I would. I bought cameras, small, discreet, the kind used for security systems and cheap peace of mind. I installed them quietly. One in the living room, one in the kitchen, one facing the garage. I told myself it was for the kids, in case something happened while I was gone. But I knew better. The first week, nothing. Just the ordinary rhythm of a family. Cartoons, cereal, toys underfoot. Then the footage began to shift. On a Tuesday afternoon, Sarah lay half asleep on the couch, wine glass dangling from her hand, while the TV played a show the children weren't watching. Lily microwaved dinner for her brother. Ethan cried when the cartoon froze, no one helping him restart it. I watched those minutes loop in silence. My reflection ghosted over the screen. The next day, the same scene, different bottle, same neglect. Then came Mark, our neighbor, married, helpful in the way men are when they see opportunity disguised as empathy. He appeared first at the edge of the camera frame, dropping off a package, staying too long. Then again and again, until one afternoon his car was parked in our driveway long after I should have been the one pulling in. The recordings didn't leave room for doubt. His hand brushed hers in the kitchen. Later, they disappeared together down the hallway. When they returned, the bottle was empty, and she was laughing that soft, careless laugh I hadn't heard in months. I saved every clip, labeled them by date, not out of vengeance, out of necessity, because part of me still hoped I'd never need them, that she'd wake up one morning, see what she'd become, and choose her children over whatever numbness she was chasing. But people rarely turn back once they start running from themselves. I began noticing smaller betrayals. Receipts for places she'd never mentioned. A forgotten earring that wasn't hers. Perfume I'd never smelled before left on her clothes. Each discovery chipped at something deeper than trust. It eroded identity. I wasn't a husband anymore. I was a bystander with a mortgage. When I confronted her about the drinking, she brushed it off. "You're overreacting," she said, eyes glazed with fatigue or guilt. I couldn't tell which. Every mom needs a break sometimes. I wanted to believe her. God, I did. But truth doesn't stay buried. It leaks through everything, staining even the moments that seem whole. By spring, the house felt different. The children had learned silence as a language. Meals were short, conversations shorter. Sometimes I'd come home to find Sarah outside on the porch, glass in hand, staring at nothing. The light would hit her hair just right and I'd remember who she used to be. That memory hurt worse than anger ever could. Then, that morning in Chicago, her message arrived. The final act in a play she'd been rehearsing for months. I excused myself from the meeting, walked out past the glass walls and into the hallway. My reflection followed. Tie crooked, eyes hollow. I stood by the window overlooking the gray sprawl of the city. From up there, the streets looked orderly, logical. Lives intersecting without chaos. But inside me, everything was breaking. I scrolled through my photos until I found one of Lily and Ethan at the zoo last summer. Faces painted like tigers, grinning, sticky with ice cream. The image felt like evidence of a crime, proof of happiness before disappearance. Called her. No answer. I texted again. Where are you? Minutes passed. The typing dots appeared, then vanished. Finally, please don't make this harder. That's when I knew she wasn't scared. She was decided. I sat in the empty hallway until security asked if I was all right. I said yes, but I wasn't. I was a man watching his life dissolve through polite messages and invisible ink. I thought about the recordings waiting on my hard drive at home. Unseen, untouched for weeks. They were my only witnesses now, the silent proof of everything she'd chosen to ignore. When I returned to the conference room, the meeting had moved on. Someone was talking about projections for the next quarter. I nodded when they looked at me, but the numbers meant nothing. The only projection I could see was the one of my children's faces fading into the rear window of her car as she drove away. I imagined her parents' house, the one she'd run to, safe, clean, judgmental. I imagined her rewriting the story before I could even speak. He's controlling. He's cold. He works too much. Lies always travel faster than truth. But truth, I reminded myself, has a longer half-life. That night, back in my hotel room, I opened the laptop and watched the recordings again. Not because I needed more proof, but because I needed to feel something real, even if it was pain. In one clip, Lily covers Ethan with a blanket after he falls asleep on the couch. She tucks the edges the way Sarah used to, then looks toward the empty hallway, waiting for a mother who never comes. I paused the frame there. That still image became my resolve. She thought she could take them and rewrite the story. But she'd forgotten one thing. I had the truth, and this time, I wasn't going to let silence protect her. When the sun rose over the Chicago skyline, I was already packing my suitcase. The message that shattered everything had also built something new. Certainty. Tomorrow I'd go home. Tomorrow I'd fight for my children. And for once, I wouldn't be the quiet man in the background. The flight home from Chicago felt endless. I sat by the window, watching the clouds shift like silent witnesses. Every minute in the air stretched between two versions of my life, the one I'd built and the one Sarah was dismantling. I stared at my wedding ring, twisting it until my skin ached. Symbols mean nothing when promises die. When I landed, the house was silent. Her car was gone. The children's backpacks, shoes, and the little drawings they used to tape to the fridge were gone too. What remained was air heavy with absence. On the kitchen counter sat a letter folded once, her handwriting small and cautious. I need time to think. Don't make this harder than it has to be. I laughed low, bitter. Time to think? She'd had a year to think. Now she wanted time to erase. I called her parents' number. Her mother answered, voice wrapped in false concern. Sarah's resting, she said. She thinks this separation will be best for everyone. Everyone but me. I didn't argue. I hung up. Then I sat in the living room, the same room where the cameras had recorded her unraveling, and turned on the laptop. Each file opened like a wound. There she was, midday, half-drunk, slurring at Lily for spilling juice. There she was, asleep on the couch while Ethan played with a lighter on the floor. And there she was with Mark, her laughter muffled against his shoulder as the children sat upstairs, probably listening. It wasn't rage that filled me. It was grief hardened into precision. I didn't want revenge. I wanted proof. Proof that would stop her from destroying the only thing that still mattered, those children. The next morning, I called my brother Michael. He'd been a quiet ally all my life, a lawyer with the kind of patience I lacked. When I told him everything, there was a long silence on the line. Then he said, "You have enough to end this quickly, but you need someone who knows family court inside out." That's how I found Julia Bennett. Her office was small, all sharp edges and order. Books aligned like soldiers, certificates glinting under fluorescent light. She listened without interrupting, her expression unreadable. When I finished, she said softly, "You did the right thing. These recordings, this isn't paranoia. This is protection." She asked for copies. I handed her the drive like it was a confession. "Sarah's attorney is already preparing filings," Julia said. "They're claiming emotional neglect, controlling behavior, financial manipulation. Classic deflection." I almost laughed. "She's good at rewriting stories." Julia smiled faintly. "Then we'll write ours louder." That afternoon, a letter arrived from a Manhattan law firm. Elegant, predatory. It demanded full custody for Sarah, supervised visitation for me, and ongoing financial support. They painted her as a devoted mother escaping an overbearing husband. Julia's response was surgical. She compiled the recordings into a single, undeniable narrative. Sarah drinking through daylight, Mark entering our home, the children left unsupervised. In her reply, she attached timestamps, transcripts, and photos that told the truth better than any accusation could. 3 days later, Sarah's lawyer called to reconsider terms. Translation: panic. That night, I received my first call from Sarah since her message. She didn't sound angry, just cornered. "You didn't have to humiliate me," she said. "Those videos, how could you? How could I?" I repeated quietly, "Sarah, I didn't record a stranger. I recorded my wife while our children went hungry." She hung up. I let the silence ring. By the weekend, her family began their campaign. Her sister texted long messages about forgiveness and understanding. Her father left voicemails asking me to think of the children. They all said the same thing: minimize, excuse, forget. But forgetting is a privilege for the guilty. When the first court date arrived, I dressed in the same suit I'd worn on our wedding day. It wasn't sentiment, it was symmetry. She'd made vows in front of witnesses. Now we'd both face the truth in front of one. She arrived immaculate, hair-pinned, pearl earrings, the picture of maternal calm. If I hadn't seen the recordings, I might have believed her. But the judge did see them. Julia presented the compilation like evidence in a crime scene. The courtroom was silent except for the hum of the projector and Sarah's muffled breathing. There was a clip where Ethan tried to wake her while she slept on the couch, wine glass still in hand. His small voice, "Mom, I'm hungry," filled the room. The judge's expression didn't change, but his eyes hardened. When the screen went black, Julia spoke. "Your Honor, these are not isolated incidents. This is pattern. Neglect. Exposure to inappropriate behavior. A child's safety cannot depend on denial." Sarah's attorney tried to argue authenticity, claiming invasion of privacy. But the timestamps matched, the locations were ours, the faces undeniable. The ruling came swiftly. Temporary custody granted to me. Sarah was permitted only supervised visits until further evaluation. She didn't look at me when the gavel fell. She just stared straight ahead, her mask cracking at the edges. That night I drove home alone. The house felt both hollow and alive, like it had been waiting for air. I walked through each room slowly, touching the furniture like they were survivors. In Lily's room, I found her stuffed rabbit still on the bed. I sat there until dawn, holding it like a relic from a better life. Sarah's response came fast. False accusations multiplied. Claims that I'd misused company funds to buy the cameras, that I'd spied on her out of obsession. I produced receipts. Personal account, dated months before her affair began. Then she turned to social media, posting half-truths dressed as heartbreak. Her friends flooded the comments with sympathy. But truth has witnesses, too. Neighbors, teachers, even her own co-workers stepped forward. Stories of her intoxication, her neglect. The narrative shifted. Slowly, then all at once. Her unraveling was public now. One morning, at 4 a.m., She appeared at my door, pounding like the world owed her entrance. Her eyes were red, her speech slurred. "They're my kids," she shouted, while the children cried upstairs. The police arrived. The breathalyzer confirmed what everyone already knew. Public intoxication. Violation of the custody order. They took her away while she screamed my name as if it were both curse and prayer. News travels fast. The story spread through our town, whispers turning into headlines. Local mother arrested during custody dispute. Her name, once a symbol of suburban grace, now hung in digital shame. I should have felt vindicated. Instead, I felt empty. Justice, when it finally comes, doesn't roar. It exhales. In the following weeks, Sarah's calls dwindled. When she did reach out, her tone shifted, from anger to pleading. She asked for second chances, claimed she'd get help, said the children needed their mother. I didn't argue. I just listened until her voice cracked, then said softly, "They also need safety." She hung up. Every night, I'd check on Lily and Ethan sleeping in their rooms. The silence was different now, not heavy, but peaceful. Lily stopped waking from nightmares. Ethan began humming again while building his toy trains. War leaves scars, but it also clears the field. Still, part of me wondered what forgiveness was supposed to look like. Not for her, for myself. Because even victory, when it comes at the cost of love, feels like failure. But I had made my choice. And choices, like evidence, don't disappear. The first court hearing felt like walking into a storm I had seen coming for months. I wore the same gray suit I'd worn when we bought our house. It didn't fit the same. Nothing did. Sarah stood across the room looking perfect. Hair straight, dress neat, eyes calm. She could have been at a job interview, not fighting for her children. For a second, I almost believed the image she built. The careful smile, the steady hands. But then I remembered the videos. The long days when she disappeared into sleep while the kids waited for her to wake up. The judge looked serious but tired. He'd seen too many families like ours. People turning love into paperwork. When Sarah's lawyer started speaking, the words came like rain. Stable home, devoted mother, overbearing husband. I didn't move. Then my lawyer, Julia, played the recordings. No speeches, just truth. The screen filled with ordinary rooms that had become evidence. The living room, the kitchen, the garage. Sarah on the couch in the afternoon light. The sound of a bottle tipping over. The children calling her name. The courtroom went quiet. Even the air felt different. When the video ended, the judge asked no questions. He only said, "We'll take a short recess." During that pause, Sarah didn't look at me. She kept her eyes on the table, her hands twisting a napkin into thin paper rope. After the break, the judge spoke clearly. Temporary custody goes to the father. The mother will have supervised visits only. The gavel hit. The sound felt final. I should have felt victory, but it didn't feel like winning. It felt like losing something that had already been broken. Sarah left the room fast. Reporters waited outside. Small-town gossip dressed as journalism. I walked past them without a word. That night the house was still. Lily and Ethan slept in their own rooms again. I sat in the hall between them, listening to their slow breathing. Peace can sound like a heartbeat when you haven't heard it in a while. But Sarah didn't stop fighting. The next week, her lawyer sent new papers claiming I bought the cameras with stolen company money. Julia showed receipts from my personal account. That attack ended before it began. Then Sarah went online. She posted long messages about being spied on and controlled. Friends shared them. Some believed her. For a few days, I was the villain in someone else's story. But neighbors began speaking out. Teachers too. They talked about seeing her drunk in the afternoons, missing school pickups, forgetting conferences. Little by little, the story changed. One morning, a teacher sent an email to the court describing how Lily once stayed after class because her mother never arrived. That single message did more than any lawyer's speech. Sarah's defense crumbled, and anger replaced strategy. She called me at night, her voice sharp and shaking. "You think you can take everything from me?" she said. "I didn't take it," I answered. "You left it behind." A few days later, She showed up at my door. It was still dark outside, a thin rain falling. She was unsteady, eyes red. She shouted my name again and again until the kids woke up crying. I called the police. They came, calm but firm, and led her away. Watching that scene, the flashing lights, the neighbors staring from their porches, was not something I had ever imagined when we married. The woman I once loved stood in the rain, handcuffed, asking me to believe her one more time. That moment spread quickly. Someone recorded it on a phone. Soon it was online. Local mother arrested during custody dispute. Her name trended for a day. People I didn't know sent messages telling me I had done the right thing. None of them knew how heavy right can feel. In the following weeks, Sarah called often. At first she was furious, then desperate. She promised to get help, said she was seeing a counselor, said she missed the children. I listened. I didn't argue. But when she asked if she could come home, I said no. The next court date came and went. The judge kept custody with me, said Sarah could see the kids at a center with a supervisor present. She cried then, real tears, not staged ones. I wanted to feel something other than numbness, but I didn't. The town moved on. People always do. The story that once shocked them turned into background noise. But for us, the noise never stopped. Lily started drawing again. Simple pictures of houses and trees. Ethan slept through the night. He still asked about his mother, but the questions were softer now. Is she okay? I told him yes, even when I wasn't sure. At work, colleagues treated me gently, like someone returning from a long illness. They talked about projects, meetings, ordinary things. I nodded, pretending life was normal again. But at night, when the house settled and the quiet stretched too far, I'd replay everything. Every sign I'd ignored, every time I'd chosen patience over truth. It's strange how love teaches you to lie to yourself first. One evening, Julia called to discuss the final hearing. The evidence speaks for itself, she said. But you'll need to testify about the kids, how they're doing, what daily life looks like. That part one could do. I knew every detail. Lily's favorite bedtime story, Ethan's fear of thunderstorms, the way they both liked pancakes shaped like hearts. I could talk about them forever. Before the hearing, I passed Sarah in the courthouse hallway. She looked smaller somehow, her confidence gone. She didn't speak, but her eyes followed me. For a second I saw something familiar, regret maybe, or just exhaustion. When I took the stand, I didn't talk about her mistakes. I talked about the children, their routines, their progress in school, the way they laughed again. The judge listened closely. When I finished, he simply nodded. Sarah's turn came. She said she loved them, that she was getting help, that she deserved another chance. I believed her about the love. I didn't believe the rest. The judge's decision was short. Full custody remained with me. She could visit twice a month, supervised, until she proved stability. After the gavel fell, she cried quietly. I wanted to reach out, but there was nothing left to hold. Outside, reporters waited again. I walked past them into the cold air, the sky low and gray. The fight was over, but peace doesn't arrive on command. It sneaks in, one silent evening at a time. That night, Lily asked if her mom would ever live with us again. I said I didn't know. She nodded, then whispered, "It's quieter now. I like it." Ethan added, "Can we make pancakes tomorrow?" "Yes," I said. "Every weekend if you want." They smiled and went upstairs. When the house finally settled, I sat alone at the kitchen table. The same place where I'd once installed the cameras, the same light above me, the same hum of the refrigerator. But the man sitting there wasn't the same. The storm had passed. What remained was calm, not joy but calm, and the quiet knowledge that truth, once shown, doesn't need to be shouted again. Heather called me the week before the last hearing. Her voice was steady, almost professional, like she had rehearsed the words until they no longer shook. She said she was Mark's wife. She said she was done. Then she asked for my lawyer's email and sent everything. Messages, photos, receipts, not rumors, proof. In their texts, Sarah and Mark spoke like accountants of betrayal. Hotel reservations, midday plans, Promises about the future that had my name crossed out and replaced with theirs. One thread made my hands go cold. A plan to fix custody because courts always protect mothers. Another line about my money carrying them until they settled into a better life. I forwarded it all to Julia. She didn't respond with outrage. She never did. She answered with a timestamp and the words, "This closes the circle." The final hearing was quiet. No cameras, no friends. Just the room, the judge, the two of us, and the weight of what we'd made together and then broken apart. Sarah looked smaller than before. Not fragile, hollow. She still wore the careful dress and the neat hair, but the mask didn't seal. There was air between her and her image now, and everyone could see it. Julia didn't grandstand. She simply walked the court through the sequence. The drinking, the neglect, the neighbor, the plan. Every exhibit was a mirror held steady. No adjectives, no heat, just the shape of what happened. When it was my turn, I didn't talk about Sarah. I talked about the children. I talked about Ethan's soft fear of thunder and how he counts the seconds between lightning and sound like he's holding the sky together. I talked about Lily's lists, the way she writes down what we need for the week with a seriousness that breaks me. Milk, apples, quiet. Her handwriting still uneven, but sure. The judge asked me how we spend our evenings. I said we cook simple food. We clean as we go. We read. Sometimes we just sit at the table and color, each of us in our own page, the silence gentle. I said the house sleeps now. That was all. Sarah spoke last. She tried to push the weight back into me with soft words. She said I had grown cold. She said I withheld kindness. She cried. When the tears didn't move the room, she tried a different door. Blame is concern. He's too stern, she said. He does not forgive. I didn't argue. I let the air settle. The ruling was short. Full custody to me. Supervised visits for her. No alimony. Minimal support. The house remains mine. The gavel sounded like a closing lid. It didn't feel like victory. It felt like the end of a long storm you walked through alone. Outside, the weather matched the moment. Gray, undecided. Julia shook my hand and told me to go home. To cook dinner. To keep living. She said routine is a shelter. She was right. Mark disappeared the same week. He stopped answering Sarah's calls. Heather filed for divorce and blocked their names from the plan of her future. She sent me one last message. I hope your children get peace. That was all. No parade. Just a clean door shutting. Sarah moved back to her parents' house. A smaller room. A shorter voice. I heard she found work at a clothing store in the mall. The kind of job where the lights are bright and the hours are long and everyone pretends you are fine. She texted me 3 times that first month. Each one edged toward the house, the money, the children. I didn't answer. Silence isn't revenge. It's a boundary finally honored. Life, when it came back, came in small pieces. We started with the kitchen. Lily and Ethan picked a recipe card at random on Sundays, and we followed it like an oath. Sometimes we had pancakes for dinner. Sometimes we burned the first batch and laughed too loudly at the smoke. We learned to crack eggs with one hand. We learned that flour gets everywhere no matter how careful you are. The mess felt like proof that we were still here. The house changed, too. Not the furniture. The air. It stopped holding secrets. The walls no longer waited for another slammed door or another apology that meant nothing. The sound of cartoons returned, soft in the morning. The sound of sleep returned, heavy at night. Lily said the quiet helped her finish homework. She drew again. Trees taller than the page, houses with too many windows, the 3 of us in the yard, our heads too big, our smiles too simple. She drew a 4th figure once, standing far away by a fence. No face, just distance. She didn't explain. I didn't ask. Ethan stopped waking at midnight to check if lights were on. He stopped asking if we were leaving. He counted thunder for fun again. He started singing to himself while lining up his toy trains, the notes soft and a little broken, like a radio in another room. We built blanket forts. We ate on the floor once just because. We made a rule that the table could hold homework and dinner but not phones. We kept it. Rules, when they protect tenderness, feel like mercy. I expected anger to camp in me. Didn't. What stayed was something quieter. The ache of what could have been if truth had found us earlier. But ache isn't a master. It's a witness. I let it sit in the corner while I made lunches and packed backpacks and checked tiny teeth for lost spaces. Supervised visits began. The children went to a neutral room with soft chairs and a clock too loud. I waited in the parking lot and counted streetlights. They came back with quiet eyes and said little. I didn't pry. I just made cocoa and listened to their silence until it softened. Sometimes that took a day. Her texts changed shape. Less demand. More memory. She wrote things like, "Remember the beach," or "Ethan loved the blue shoes." The past as currency. I didn't spend it. I kept my answers short when I had to answer at all. The visit is at 3. That was enough. People like to send advice when your life falls apart the right way. You should date. You should forgive. You should rage. I did none of those. I cleaned the fridge. I scheduled dentist visits. I fixed the hinge on the cabinet that had always squeaked. I told the truth when the children asked for it, and I held the rest until they were older. Some nights, after they fell asleep, I sat in the hallway and let the house speak. Wood settles. Air moves. Memory flickers at the edge of the frame. I watched the doorways and remembered the cameras. Small machines, a few $100s, unloved and plain. They did not rescue me. They forced me to stop lying to myself. I kept the files. Not to win. To remember the price. Evidence is not for gloating. It is for refusing to forget how easily comfort can disguise rot. On the anniversary of the ruling, we drove to the lake. No speeches. We packed sandwiches that fell apart and watched the water carry sunlight like small fires. Lily skipped stones and counted the skips like they were proof. Ethan tried and dropped his rock in with both hands. He laughed. Then he asked if the water forgives. I told him water doesn't judge. It only receives. He nodded like that was enough. Months later, Sarah asked, again, about the house. She said she deserved a share. She said the children would be happier if she could visit them in rooms that remembered her. I sent the same answer my lawyer had sent before. Legal, polite, final. The house is mine. The children's safety is not a bargaining chip. She stopped asking. I would like to say I feel nothing now. That would be neat, useful. But feelings don't obey rulings. Some mornings I miss the woman she was before the year of lies. Some nights I dream of a kitchen with 2 people cooking, hands bumping by accident, the kind of touch that fixes nothing and still makes everything seem possible. Then I wake to 2 small breaths down the hall and remember the cost of wishing. So I ask myself the only question that matters. What did I teach them? Not perfection. Not victory. I taught them that love is a verb with laws. I taught them that home is not a place where adults get forgiven for free. I taught them that silence can be kindness, and it can also be consent, and you must learn the difference or you will lose yourself in someone else's comfort. And I learned something, too, that leaving is not always walking out. Sometimes leaving is simply refusing to move an inch when a lie tells you to. The cameras saved us, yes, but only because I finally looked. Only because, when truth knocked, I opened the door and let the storm in. Now the nights are ordinary. We wash dishes. We dry them. We plan for school projects and cheap vacations and new shoes in sizes that keep changing. Ordinary is a holy word in our house. Every story wants a clean ending. This one doesn't get it. She might still change. She might not. The door is closed but not locked. If she chooses sobriety, if she chooses truth, there will be a path. It will be long. It will be slow. It will belong to the children, not to me. Until then, I am the man who stayed. I am the man who turned the lights back on. I am the man who makes pancakes on Sundays and says grace as a form of inventory. We are here, we are fed, we are safe. Was I wrong?